This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Why Is Everyone Yelling with Lindsay Hine? I am your host, Lindsay, and I'm so happy you're here today. I've got a fun episode with Katy Allan. This is episode 4. Katy is the woman behind the wildly popular Instagram account, and she's got a wonderful website called Savoring the Flavoring. Katy's theory is cook your own food, eat good, nutritious, homemade meals made from quality, fresh, whole food ingredients. Give your body what it needs, and it will do its thing. No diets required. I love that. In this episode, Katy gives us some great meal planning ideas. She shares with us why she loves the farmer's market so much and why we should all be going to our local farmer's market, how to make the best fried green tomato out there, and why she uses avocado oil for certain recipes. I had all kinds of cooking questions because I'm not a great cook and I want to be a better cook. So Katy drops the knowledge to us in this episode. It's a fun one, and you're going to walk away knowing how to make the bomb salad dressing recipe that she shares with us as well. I cannot wait to use this recipe. Katy is also the mother of 3 boys. She lives down in Georgia with her 3 sons and husband, and she has dreams one day of having her own cooking show. Dream big, why not? I love it. All right, friends, if you enjoy this podcast episode or any of the episodes we've put out so far, make sure you leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening. That is an amazing way you can support the show, and we appreciate each and every review so very much. Reminder, anybody who leaves a rating and review this month of October, you will be entered to win the Ada Lace series, which is the children's book series written by our first guest, Emily Calandrelli. Okay, you can find all of the show notes, the recipes, everything Katy and I talked about in this episode over at sandyboyproductions.com. If you want to join our mailing list so that can be sent straight to your inbox every week, give Emma, my production assistant, an email, emma@sandyboyproductions.com, and we'll get you added to that list. All right, friends, enjoy my conversation with Katy Allan. Well, today on the podcast, I'm excited to welcome Katy Allan to the show. Welcome to the podcast, Katy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are such a fun follow on Instagram. My friend Ashley pointed you out to me a while back, and when I had this idea to start a parenting type podcast, you were on my list of people to get on the show. So thanks for being one of the first ones.
I am honored. And I was late, and I am so sorry again.
Oh my gosh, don't be sorry. Everybody is doing crazy things right now, especially with kids like going back to school, not going back to school. You have 3 boys. I have 4 boys, so we're both boy moms.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So you guys are back at school.
Yes, we are back at school. We are in the city schools where we are. I don't know how it is where you are. There's like county schools and city schools here. So we're in the city school system. It's not been really bad where I am. So county schools all went back full-time, normal schedule, all that. And then city schools, for some reason, decided to go back on a hybrid schedule, even though we're all in the same town.
It's so confusing.
Yeah. So the boys would only be in school 2 days a week. So I was just kind of, we didn't know how long they were planning on doing that. We've been looking at this other school anyway, a private school nearby. So we just kind of decided, okay, well, this is kind of our sign. This is the time to do it. So we did it, and they've been there for a couple weeks now. And surprisingly, it's been a smooth transition. So they're all in school full time, and they're loving it.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because normally, like, back to school time, parents are like, yes, I'm so glad my kids are back from the summer. But now it's like, oh my gosh, not just from the summer, from like March, we've been home with our kids.
Yes. I was telling that they said, oh, summer went by so quickly. And I looked at them at the dinner table, and I said, did it? Because you guys have basically had 5 month summer. I mean, they were still, obviously doing work for a couple months of that, but it wasn't a full day of work. It was maybe like an hour or two, and that was it. So it was, as you know, having four boys, it was a challenge.
Yeah, I was pretty lax this spring. I didn't do when school they were pulled from school. I was kind of just like, we're gonna get through the spring and we're gonna do
Yeah.
what we do, but like I'm not holding anybody to any sort of standard because this is just out of nowhere. And
Wow.
with our two little, my little ones are how old are they? They're 2 and 3. Yeah. So it's like, I was like, I'm just not going to try to run school just like out of the blue like this because now my little two are in full time daycare, but they just started 2 weeks ago. So then they were home, because their daycare is close too. And at the time they were only going 2 days a week anyway. So we were just kind of like, we're going to just do this bare minimum and we're going to read and that's what it's going to look like. So now that we're virtual, but it's like the real deal, I'm trying to kind of buckle down and make sure they're actually doing work, but it's still only here where we are. It's still only like 3-ish hours a day for my second grader.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, I wonder how that translates in terms of, are they learning everything that they would be learning in school anyway, and it's just
Uh,
condensed?
I just don't see how it's possible,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, maybe some schools, but I was just talking to someone else about this. It's kind of like the teachers that are teaching virtual now that are, normally teaching in person, like they haven't been long-term trained for this, right?
Yeah.
There are virtual teachers that have been trained to be virtual teachers, but this is kind of like everybody's getting thrown into this. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like next year for like the school systems that are basically home every, the whole year. What that's going
Yeah.
to look like at the beginning, the first semester of next year. So, we'll see.
Well, good luck this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Katie, I want to hear a little bit about your family. And for those who aren't following, Katie has a super popular Instagram and blog called Savoring the Flavoring. So maybe you can share with us how that got started.
So that got started, gosh, I'm going to say 5 years ago. The Instagram probably about almost like maybe like 4-ish years ago. And basically the driving force behind starting the Instagram and the blog was that I grew up the daughter of a dietitian, so kind of healthy eating has always been just kind of second nature to me. And then when I had children, it obviously, as you know how it is, it became even more of a crucial thing for me is for them to eat really well. And we were living in California at the time that all of my kids were born in Southern California. So there, it's like you're set up for success as it
Mm.
pertains to healthy living, healthy eating. So there were year-round farmers markets. There's access everywhere you look to really good, healthy food. Like even fast food there, a lot of places are fresh and healthy. So when we moved to Georgia, and we're kind of in a smaller town in Georgia, um, from there, with all three boys, it was kind of all of a sudden a challenge to feed them in the same way that I had been feeding them. So I thought, okay, well, most people are in this situation. Most people are not living in a Southern California or something like that where they have all this access to all this stuff. So, maybe I use this as an opportunity to kind of help other people who might be in the same boat. So that's kind of where I started the blog. It was just I was making things and trying to, feed my family in a healthful way, but also keep it accessible for other people who, don't have five different Whole Foods within 5 miles of them. Um, and and on top of that, I think relating to the Instagram part of it, I did not. I'm 38, so I don't that didn't come naturally to me because I didn't just grow up with social media like a lot of the 20-somethings have. So I wasn't really seeing anything I was connecting with on social media. And I wasn't seeing, a lot of moms who were kind of sharing like the nitty gritty or, sharing stories that made me feel better about my own children. Because I know that when my oldest was 3 years old, I literally took a parenting class because I was like, I'm sure I'm doing this wrong because he was just really, really difficult. So I wasn't seeing other moms talk about that kind of stuff. I was seeing, at least what I was internalizing was, I was seeing, oh, everyone else's kids are perfect. Everyone else's lives are perfect. And mine's not, and I'm a failure. And so I kind of, wanted to start showing other moms that again might not be represented on social media. I wanted to start maybe being one of those moms for them.
I love that.
I have a journalism degree, so I love writing. So it was kind of like a fun little way to marry all those things in one. So like write little snippets every single day in the captions and cook and share and all that kind of stuff.
That's so great. I love it so much. Why were you guys in California and why'd you move to Georgia?
That's a great question. So everyone says, hey, why did you move to Georgia? So I was born and raised in Texas. And then my father, my parents are divorced. My father moved to Georgia when I was like 12, 13. And so I moved out to Georgia and lived with him through high school. And then, went away to college. And then pretty much right out of college, I had it in my head, I have a journalism degree. I'm going to move to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write for a magazine and I'm going to live there, like Carrie from Sex and the City.
Totally.
And didn't we all? And my dad, I grew up spending summers in Newport Beach, which is in Southern California, because my dad had always had businesses out there. And so he really did not want me to move to New York City. He just thought, I do not want my baby girl to be living in this big city. It's so grimy and scary and So he said, okay, I know you want to move away, far away. Why don't you move to California instead? I'm there half the time anyway, so that way you'll know someone. And he felt like it would be safer and more familiar. So that's how I ended up moving there. And lived there for 7 years, met my husband there, who he's actually from New York. So he's also an East Coaster. And then had all my babies there. And then the thing about Southern California is you start to feel more and more claustrophobic because everyone's kind of on top of one another. So we just kind of were like, you know what? We need more space. We have 3 little boys. You know how it is. So we said, look at what you can get in Georgia compared to what you can get where we were in terms of like a house and everything. So we just made the decision when I think my youngest was 6 months old when we decided to move, when we moved.
That's a big move.
So I had 3 children. Yeah, I had 3 children, 4 and under. And we did the move, and it was the best decision ever. We have a lot of room for them to run around, and we're closer to my husband's family as well. His family's all in New York and Virginia. So it's really been a good move. I'm really, really happy with how it turned out.
Okay, so how did you and your husband meet?
We met at work.
Okay.
And so I moved out to California, and I met him at work. He was in sales, and I was just kind of, in admin. And we met, and his sense of humor was just, that's what gets a lot of women, but that's definitely the number one thing. If you have that, it's like, oh my gosh, I love you. So I, figured out, oh, wow, you have a really good sense of humor. And then we became friends, and we were friends for several months. And then one day we just kind of morphed into being more than friends. And then everything went pretty quickly after that.
here you are, 3 boys later. Okay, so 2 things I was thinking of when you were talking about the Southern California thing and then like moving and not finding as many healthy options. I'm telling you, I bought a few years ago, I bought Rich Roll's cookbook. It's like a vegan cookbook, you know?
Okay.
And man, I opened that thing up and I live in Indiana. I mean, we have like health food stores, you know, scattered out everywhere and Whole Foods and whatever. But I just opened that book and I'm like, these ingredients are so insane. And even though I like a lot of them are available, A, they're not year round because I don't live in California. But B, you know, with 3, 4 little kids, like I'm not stopping at 3 different stores to get different ingredients, right?
Yeah, that's no. And that's funny that you say that because that's exactly how it felt. Like I felt like on Instagram it was if you were in like the health food space, then it's like you're vegan. Like when I first started out, that's how it was.
Mhm.
And it was like, you know, get chicory root and, you know, arrowroot flour and chia powder and like all these different things. And I'm like, what? You can't, I don't know how to get to those. It's a lot of obscure ingredients. So yes, I feel you on that. And a lot of things, especially like with produce too, a lot of things you can only find in Southern California. And most of us are not there. So
Yeah, it's like, and it takes such an organized mind too. I know it sounds silly, but like I was even just going through a cookbook yesterday and I was like, okay, pick out 2 recipes, figure out what you're going to go buy. But even just like going to the store with this like list of random weird ingredients, I felt like stressed about it. And let alone if you're taking kids with you while you're trying to pick up those ingredients, you're bound to forget something.
Oh my gosh, can you take the kids with you to the store?
I have moved away from it. I was
Smart.
I was just talking about this with my husband. I was like, I cannot believe how much I used to just haul all of them to the store with me. And now that our little 2 are in daycare full time and the big 2 are remote learning, like my husband works from home now too. I can just like run to the store all by myself. And now I can't believe I was hauling all these toddlers with me this whole time.
It feels so luxurious to just go by yourself. Oh yeah. If I was ever in a jam where I had to take any of the kids with me to the store, I'm in the worst mood when I get back because you know how it is. It's constant. They're grabbing things and putting it in the cart or asking, "Can I have this? Can we have that?" And you're like, "Stop fighting, stop doing this, stop being loud." So yeah, it's I go either when they're in school now on Monday mornings or before I would go on Sunday afternoons.
Oh, and leave them home with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Bye."
Well, I mean, the other thing I know, I remember people used to always comment on my Instagram, like, why are you taking all of your kids to the store? You can just do Instacart or, you know, like pick up. And I'm like, I don't know, just because we had time to kill. And, you know, I was like pretty much a partial stay at home mom. So I was like, I thought it'd kill time and I'll also get the grocery shopping done. The other thing I was thinking about when you were talking about wanting to move to New York City, have you seen the show The Bold Type?
No.
You should watch it.
Tell me.
Are you into stuff like that? Are you into like Netflix and TV stuff?
Well, I don't really watch a lot of TV, to be honest, just because during the day, like once the boys are gone, it's, you know, okay, got to get the workout in, got to get the work in, got to do this, got to do that. But there are a couple of things here and there that we try to watch. Like I got really into Outlander last year. And what else? My nieces got me into Stranger Things earlier this summer, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, I just watch TV like once I get my kids down for the night. I usually watch like 1 or 2 shows. Yeah. But The Bold Type,
that's the thing with that.
Yeah, this will like make you just relive like what you didn't do in New York City, and you can just live through these girls because they're like young, like early to mid 20s, and they work for this magazine called Scarlet, and they're all journalists doing their thing, living in the city. So you can live that dream through them.
Oh, I'm making a note of this in my phone notes as we speak. The Bold Type.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's like super mindless and fun, but they're always hitting like relevant, timely topics and stuff as well. So yeah, it's a good one.
I love fun shows.
Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more to Savoring the Flavoring. I love that. I think I read it on Instagram somewhere. I'm not sure where I read it, but it's somewhere in your stuff that you kind of say food is meant to fuel the body and the soul.
Yes.
I love that because you are cooking healthy meals, but you are not restricting anything, and it seems like you're providing your family with this like really beautiful and clear outlook on what food should really be.
Yes, I try to. I think that's probably the best thing my mom ever did for me was I just have always had a really, really, really great relationship with food. And it's I just every single thing about it, the smells, the sounds, the tastes, obviously, I just love, and I love experimenting with like growing things and going to the farmers market, and I've been so fortunate to work with so many different brands and get to go see how they do things, how they produce their products, how they raise their animals if there are animals involved. And so I think that leads to having a lot of respect for everything that goes into food as well. And that's definitely something that I try to teach them and pass on to them. And I just it makes me sad to think that anyone is out there feeling like they have to just like count calories every day and restrict everything that they eat, and I just there's so many stresses that come up in life that food should not be one of them. So I want them to have the same great relationship with food that I've always had, and also the same reverence for food and and farmers and animals and plants and all that kind of stuff that I've always had.
Yeah. What do you I mean, your kids obviously see that you do this for work. Like this is your
Yeah.
job.
Mhm.
How do you talk to them about it?
They're really funny. They also keep me very humble, and they do little impressions of me, and they'll kind of stand there and pretend like they're, baking something for the camera, and they'll be like, "Hi, oh, LOL, haha," even though I've never said LOL in my life. But
That's funny.
they have fun with it, and I have one of my kids, Luke, my youngest, is my biggest helper in the kitchen. So he'll come in there and he'll go, "Can I help you with this? Can I help you with that?" And my oldest has really been into experimenting lately with different recipes, and he's like, "Oh, I got to perfect this recipe." So that makes me really happy. But they kind of know at this point. I always tell them the camera eats first for
Mm.
me.
Hmm.
So I make their stuff, they go to the table with it, and then they always know, okay, she's going to take a picture. And they'll come in sometimes, and, especially my oldest will offer kind of suggestions for how to style things, or, maybe a garnish to put. So it's really, really cute, and we have fun with it. And my youngest is a little bit of a ham. He's definitely the biggest ham. So he'll do a lot of things for the camera sometimes, like, dance or or just little things, and he'll let me know like, you can post this or do not post this.
Uh-huh.
So I think they see now after this many years of doing it that it's kind of just a part of our lives, and they kind of roll with it. They're not really they're not overly interested in it. They don't really they're they're not that impressed by me, but they're really good. They have good relationships with food, and they love my little one Luke loves helping me in the garden, and so he loves like helping me harvest stuff. So it's fun. I think I don't even I've never really explained to them, I guess, like, hey, this is exactly what I do, but they do see it and have fun with it. And one of my oldest son, I took him a couple years ago. I work with a pecan butter brand,
Okay.
and they're based 4 hours south of us. And I had to go down there for a photo shoot a couple years ago. So I took my oldest out of school that day, and he came down with me, and he got to like be my little assistant on the shoot, and he got to see how the pecan butter was made. And so it's little opportunities like that, I think, I love them having.
That is so fun. For my podcast, I do like live shows sometimes, not in 2020 anymore. I did sneak one in 2020. Yeah, but I took my oldest son with me in February to the Olympic trials for the marathon, and he got to see me do some like one-on-one interviews and stuff. And it was
That's
so
so
fun.
cool.
Yeah, like it's so cool to be able to just say, I have the freedom to take my kid with me on a work trip. I know that not everybody has that freedom, but
Yeah.
how cool is that?
That's so cool. And I love them seeing us do, like seeing their moms do these things. I
Yeah.
think that's so cool.
Yeah, that's so fun that you took him with you. Yeah, I saw you posting some different things about the pecan butter. Oh my gosh, tell everybody the salad dressing recipe that you just posted because it looks so good.
Oh, okay. So I did this. There's this local like natural foods market nearby, and they always have this. They sell these containers of chicken salad that has like kale and stuff in it too. But it's like, a chicken salad's kind of like creamy. It's got like
Hmm.
the mayo and stuff in it. So I was like, oh, I love this salad. And I'm thinking I can make this at home, but better. So I'm like, what if I put pecan butter in with the mayo and it's kind of like a creamy pecan dressing? So it was so simple. I did like a dollop, equal amounts probably of mayo and the sea salt pecan butter, which is literally just pecans and sea salt.
Okay.
And then I did a squeeze of fresh lemon juice and some sea salt and I think a little bit of pepper and just like whisked it up and tossed it with kale and chicken and boiled egg and some grain-free granola. And I think there were blueberries in there and chicken, obviously. And it was so good.
That sounds so good. I would never think to do pecan butter for salad dressing.
I know. I've been trying to play around with it more in savory things because everyone I think thinks of it as kind of more of a sweet
Uh-huh.
thing.
Uh-huh.
But it's been doing really well. I've been using it in place of peanut butter too, and like Thai style type kind of sauce,
Oh, yeah.
and it's been really good there too. I love peanut butter, but I know that a lot of people don't eat it for whatever reason. So I thought, it's a good way to incorporate a different type of nut butter into those types of recipes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that like almond butter is better for you, and like a lot of other nut butters are better than peanut butter. But like when you have four little boys eating peanut butter and jellies a
Yeah.
lot, like it's
Yeah.
hard to not just buy like straight up Jif peanut butter because
Oh
they're
yeah.
going through it so fast.
Yes, yes. Because I'm not going to buy a $20 jar of almond butter for them
Yes.
twice a week. Yeah, totally know where you're coming from.
Yeah, like I have my own little jar, and I'm like,
Yes.
is that terrible that you're just giving yourself the good stuff and you're giving them the cheap
No,
peanut butter?
not at all. That's economical, is what I call it. I told my husband I need a different pantry for my work stuff because brands will send stuff
Mm-hmm.
and my husband will come along and he's a big snacker and
Uh-huh.
he'll come along and find it and he'll just open it up and eat it all. And so I'm like, I need a separate pantry for this stuff, but I also need a separate pantry for like my, pricier little
Uh-huh.
snack foods because those are off limits. I'm like, nope, do not touch this chocolate. Don't touch this. Have you heard of Smart Sweets?
I think so.
They're like a lower sugar, kind of they're like gummy candies and stuff. And I love them, but they're like $3 or $4 per little bag. So I'm not going to they would just kind of wolf it all down and not
Uh-huh.
even really respect the food. So I'm like, no, you cannot have this. This is mine.
Yeah, you all get the Jelly Bellies or
Yes.
whatever, the Starburst, whatever. The fancy candy is for mom.
Exactly. This is mommy's. The $6 chocolate bar is mine.
Oh my gosh, totally. Okay, convince us all to start shopping at our local farmers market. I know you're really into that.
Oh, such a good question. Or statement. Okay. I mean, so many reasons. I think I just did a post about this a couple weeks ago, but number one, farmers market. So everyone talks about, organics are more expensive, but the cool thing about farmers markets that a lot of people don't realize is that these, number one, are local farmers. So you're supporting your local economy and your local community members and your local farmers by going to the farmers market. But also, a lot of the time, these people are using organic practices. They just don't want to pay the money for the certification.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting the same thing as you would get at the store, but a lot of the time for half the price, because you're cutting out the middleman, all the middlemen. You don't have to pay for all the extra paperwork and stuff that they have to do or like the transport or anything like that. So you're getting it at great prices, and it's local, which means that it hasn't, like I said, traveled 2,000 miles to get to your plate. So what that means is, number one, it's obviously fresher, which means that it also has more nutrients in it still, because after 24 hours, the nutrients, they start to kind of dissipate a little bit. So the sooner you pluck that from the tree or the bush or the ground or wherever, the better in terms of how nutrient rich it is. With it being local, that's also going to mean that if it was grown in local soil, and a lot of the time that means it's just going to be better for you individually, because you're being exposed to, I'm getting so dorky now, but you're getting exposed.
I love it.
To all that like good bacteria and all that life that's in that local soil. That's where that was grown. So that's great for you to take in. On top of that, at farmers markets, it's always going to be seasonal food, obviously. So, if you're in New York, obviously they're not going to, if it's like in November, they're not going to have a bunch of things that they would still have in California. So everything is going to be at its peak flavor because it's seasonal. So you will have things at a farmer's market that taste impossibly good. Like you're like, wow, and nothing will measure up to it at the grocery store, because these things were all picked like a couple weeks ago. And, maybe they're not seasonal. Maybe they're not really local. They're probably not. So it's just like you're supporting your community. You're getting out there and you're amongst your community, which I love. You're fostering this sense of like, we're all in this together and we're all supporting each other. And you find really cool stuff too at a farmer's market that you will not find at a grocery store. At a grocery store, you go in, you have a list. Those are the things you get. You don't really look at anything else. You don't really notice new things if there are new things. At a farmer's market, you kind of have to reprogram your mind, and you go in and you don't really necessarily know what all you're going to come out with, because there's always something new, and you see what looks good and what doesn't look good, and then you plan your meals around that. So it's just the most exciting part of my week.
I love it. Do you go every Saturday?
Every single Saturday.
Now, do you go alone, or do you always take your kids? Is it a family thing?
That's a great question. It's most often a family thing. Sundays I make a big breakfast and we kind of hang out around the house. Saturdays we get up and we go get donuts. So when it's off season for the farmers market, usually my husband will take them to go get donuts and then come back. But for farmers market season, usually we'll all get up, we'll all go out and get them donuts together. And then while we're out, we'll also hit the farmer's market. And the boys love it because there's this one vendor that they have like this peach iced tea that they love. Mm-hmm. And there's another one that does popsicles. So they love going for all the treats and honey and things. So, and there's a fountain there that they'll go and sit by and kind of cool down. And they always have, a guy singing or something like that on a guitar. So they love it. My husband loves the cold brew, but we had to make a deal at the beginning of this year. I don't know if all men are like this, but he'll stand there next to me and he'll kind of go, do we really need that? I don't think we need that. Uh-huh. Do you really need this? And I'll give him a look, like just a withering look, like you better stop or you're not invited anymore. So we made a deal that I was like, this is groceries, okay? This is not like me buying a purse.
I'm
So,
not playing. Yeah.
yeah, so just let me live at the farmer's market.
I mean, I am playing, but this is the food that's going to be on your plate. Yeah, my
Yeah.
husband is like he's not anti farmers market for the reasons you said you should go. He just like doesn't want to be around the crowds and like
Yeah.
also our kids are still really little and there's so many of them that he's like they're so annoying at the farmers market.
I
Uh
understand that.
I don't want to deal with them there. So we don't go as much as we should, but we should go. What I should do at this point is just go with our big two and leave him at
Yes.
home with the little two because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying, but there is something. I mean, I remember going to the farmer's market as a little girl and eating the honeysuckle and that being super exciting.
Yeah. You should. So that should be your goal this weekend. Because I
Okay.
do that sometimes. I always take at least one of the kids.
Yeah.
So if we don't all go, then I'll pick one of the boys and I'll be like, who wants to go to the farmer's market? And that's the boy that will go with me. So it's like a fun little mommy and Luke date or fun mommy Jack, fun mommy Ford date, whoever wants to come.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
like
what you should do.
one-on-one time for sure. Okay. Well, maybe we'll go this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Tell me if you can in a podcast. I think you can. Tell me how to make a really good fried green tomato.
Ooh, okay. So fried green tomatoes are big down here in Georgia.
I love them so much.
It's fun because most people grow tomatoes, I feel like, even if you just have like a pot on your porch.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously all a green tomato is just a tomato that's not ripe yet. So you can really make them out of most any larger tomato. So you take a green tomato, and the way I do it is you slice it into maybe like half-inch thick. Green tomatoes are really firm still, so it's good. So it doesn't just like fall apart like a ripe tomato. And then there's this stuff, and you can make it too if you can't get a hold of it. But there's this stuff I love called pork panko.
Okay.
And so do you know what pork rinds are?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I've never actually had a pork rind, but apparently they're kind of like they're almost like, okay, do you know what Funyuns are?
Yes.
So they're almost I that's like a guilty pleasure. I love Funyuns. Like if we're on a road trip, I will get Funyuns. But um it's kind of like a consistency of that. A pork rind that is. But so these are basically pork rinds that they ground into like panko type breadcrumbs.
Okay.
So that it's like grain free and all that kind of stuff. I just really like the whole food nature of it and the consistency of it. So that's why I love it because we're not grain free. But so I'll take my slices of tomato and then I'll dredge them in cassava flour. You can use regular flour if you like. You can use gluten-free all-purpose flour if you're gluten-free. Cassava flour is gluten-free too. But so I'll dredge them just lightly in flour. And what the flour does, I just had someone ask me this the other day, so I'll explain it.
Yes.
What the flour does is it creates kind of like a little glue because the next step after you lightly dredge it in flour on both sides is you dip it really quickly into a beaten egg.
Okay.
And then you dip it into the breadcrumbs. So what the flour does is it gives that egg something to adhere to so that it almost makes like a little glue for the breadcrumbs. So that's the order of that. So flour, egg, breadcrumbs.
And then you fry it?
And then I don't even deep fry it. I just put, a little bit of avocado oil in a cast iron skillet, and then it takes maybe like a couple minutes per side and you're good.
Okay, so why avocado oil?
So avocado oil just has a high smoke point. That's why anything that's like high heat cooking, like frying, it doesn't. So basically, when there's an oil that has a low smoke point, like olive oil, for instance, which the smoke point's going to be like 350 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
Avocado oil, I think, is like 450. So olive oil will break down and could kind of give off some I don't want to say chemicals because that's not the right word, but it degrades the product,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
So because its smoke point is lower, it's going to be all smoky and damage basically the natural fats that are in the oil. So avocado oil can withstand a lot more heat. So that's why I use that for high heat cooking.
See, I always get confused. I know that the fact that you don't want to do high heat cooking with olive oil, but I still cook everything with olive oil because I'm always like, well, is this high heat? I don't know.
No, if that's all I have, then I'll use it. I'm not scared to, there are some purists, but
Ah,
I'm not a purist at all. But I do pretty much always have avocado oil on hand, and I just kind of know, like, okay, if I'm roasting something like 400 or above, then I'm probably going to use avocado oil, but I've used olive oil and I've lived to tell the tale.
what do you like? Do you saute vegetables with on like a stovetop?
You know what? I like to use ghee a lot for that because ghee also has a higher smoke point,
Okay.
like avocado oil, but it has the flavor of butter.
Oh,
So
I
I
don't
don't
buy that. I've never
you know
bought
what
that.
you know what ghee is?
No.
Okay, so do you know what clarified butter is? Like when you have lobster and you're dipping into the butter,
Okay.
that's clarified butter.
Okay.
So basically, how it works is you melt down butter until the milk solids, like all that foam that kind of comes up,
Uh huh.
until the milk solids kind of fall down to the bottom of the saucepan and brown, and then you strain the butter to strain out those milk solids. And so you're just left with essentially like the oil from the butter.
Okay.
And then I refrigerate it so it kind of solidifies back up. And that's ghee. So it's basically just removing the milk solids, which is where all the lactose is. So people who have issues with dairy and with ghee because all the milk solids have been removed. And since the milk solids are the thing that burns at a lower temperature, then the smoke point is a lot higher of ghee than it is with butter.
So you make your own ghee. You don't buy this at the
I do.
store.
Well, I make my own, but there's so many different brands now. Over the last probably 5 years, it's really blown up. So you can find ghee in the cooking oil section. And even I think they might have some in the butter section at some stores as well. But you don't have to refrigerate it. So you can find it in the cooking oil section at pretty much any grocery store now. But it's so
Wow.
easy to make your own, and nothing tastes better than homemade.
I think I might have to put my husband on that though.
Yep.
I can do it. No, I can
Give
do
them
it.
a job.
I say that because he does a lot of the cooking at our house, which is just the way we roll.
Oh, cool. I love that.
Yeah, well,
I love that. I love the boys are saying that too.
yeah, I mean, I will stand in the kitchen paralyzed. Like, what do I do? I mean, if I have a plan or a recipe, cool. But the reason he cooks more is because he'll just be like, yeah, we'll just make this tonight. And he just like doesn't think about it and just whips whatever up. Whereas I'm like, I need a plan. I need to know what the side's going to be. So I make it into this, yeah, big production.
See, and that's very cool because like people who are at ease like that and they can just throw things together, a lot of the time that food is just the most phenomenal food you've ever had anyway. So
Yeah,
I think that's a really good deal.
it is a good deal. And he is a good cook. He's really good at it. Um, he makes what we have is fancy grilled cheese a lot, so it's just like, whatever vegetables or sauce he comes up with and just puts it on, some good bread and some cheese, and that's what we have for dinner a lot.
What you need. I love that. That's a very Italian style of cooking too, because they're just really like very simple. Let's just, as long as the ingredients are good, then the resulting dish will be good. But
Oh,
they keep it simple.
I love it. Okay, let's finish off with a couple meal planning tips, and then we'll wrap up with end of podcast questions. So, do you have any tips for the listeners for, like, how I said I stand in my kitchen like paralyzed? What do I do?
Yes.
Fix me.
Okay, so I think so. My husband is actually that same exact way in the kitchen. If he's ever, if it's my birthday or Mother's Day or something like that, he's very sweet and he tries to take control and like whip something up for me, and it's very cute. But the thing that he always complains about is like what you're saying, like he'll get in there And for him, it's about the timing of everything. So
Mm.
usually he'll be trying to make like the whole thing. So like a main dish and then like a vegetable and then some sort of starch. So he just gets very overwhelmed with the timing of everything. So for that, I think a good way to approach it is, I mean, obviously crock pots are fantastic for that kind of thing because you can just throw everything in and, leave for the day or whatever and come home and dinner is pretty much ready. So crock pots, I absolutely love. But also, you can use your crock pot for maybe if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do chicken with rice, whatever. You can start the rice in the crock pot and then you're good. You don't have to worry about the rice and it's just dumping it in there and you're good. So you don't have to worry about like timing it to be done, at a certain time because it'll just do its thing. Also, just having things on hand that make it simple to get those sides done. Like frozen vegetables are fantastic. And a lot of the time, they're going to actually be fresher than something you might find in the produce section if it's not like a local produce. Because a lot of the time, the way that they're doing it, they're flash freezing right after they've harvested. So that's a great option because you can just toss it in a saucepan or a skillet or the microwave or wherever, and that's going to be your vegetables done in like 3 minutes. So just little shortcuts like that are awesome if you get overwhelmed in the kitchen. Another tip is I I am very very fastidious with my grocery list.
Mm.
So like I said, at the farmer's market, it's a little different. I'll go in having an idea of things I definitely need for the week, but I do tend to like pivot more during farmer's market season just because I want to go with what looks good and what's fresh and what they have available at the market. But the rest of the year, I am I am very, very organized with my grocery list. And the second that I see that we're running low on something, I add it to the list. Um, the second I'm like, okay, I want to make this, so I'll need this, this, and this. I add that to the list. And the way that I do my grocery list, on one side, I write down all the things I want to make for the week. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, dinner, lunch, whatever. And then on the other side, I will write down all the ingredients that I need to make those things. And to make sure that when it's time to grocery shop, I'm not standing there in front of the fridge in the pantry for an hour before I have to leave, seeing like, okay, what all do I need? Oh, and then getting overwhelmed and just kind of being like, forget it. I'm not even going to go. So I think just organization in that regard is huge in terms of not getting overwhelmed. And then just having a really well stocked spice cabinet is huge. Because I know that anyone that I ever talk to who feels like they're not a good cook, usually all it is they're afraid of spices and herbs and they don't know how to apply them to their cooking and they don't know, what combinations go with what. So I think if you always good of spices and herbs in your house, you're good. Like you can do pretty much anything and you don't even really need a ton. You don't need like obscure spices, just, maybe like 7 or 8 and that's pretty much you're good. You've got everything covered and like garlic powder, onion powder, oregano, cumin, obviously sea salt and pepper, cinnamon, and then you can kind of, thyme, dry thyme is a big one, and you can get fancy from there. Chili powder. You can make pretty much anything with those. And I think not being afraid of fat, not being afraid of salt, and it's just you start to learn what goes with what. And also I think if you're always confident in knowing that you have everything you need to make a quick dinner, then that gives you confidence in the kitchen too. If you have eggs, you're good.
What's your go-to like like all seasoning mixture. And do you buy your seasoning from anywhere special? I recently saw a thread in like the local Midtown parents group about this like special place that everybody goes and buys their seasoning from that's not just the regular grocery store. It's like literally a season store.
Oh, wow. We don't have anything cool like that.
I can't remember what it's called. I've still never been, but everybody was raving like the spices are so much better here.
There's like the bulk spices at pretty much any grocery store or like natural foods market. But to be honest, I never really do those. I just kind of always get, in the spice aisle, I get those spices. But one thing that I do always recommend to everyone is there's this, it's actually a local brand in Atlanta called Beautiful Briny Sea. And they do all these sea salt and sugar blends. And their sea salt blends, I have pretty much every single flavor they've ever done. And I always tell people, if you only have room in your spice cabinet for like one thing, then get a sea salt blend because it'll cover all your bases, quickly and affordably. And so their one blend, it's called the French Picnic sea salt blend. It's a really, really, that's my favorite, just kind of all purpose spice and salt blend that they do. And I think they sell them in Williams Sonoma and, they have them online, obviously. A lot of Whole Foods have them, but I love everything that they do.
Okay, I just looked it up. The spice place I was talking about, in case there are any local Indianapolis listeners, is called Pinsy's Spices.
Nice. Now I have to come to Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if it's a chain, but it seems like it might be local. So yeah, Pinsy's Spices. It's actually right by Trader Joe's.
There you go.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. You can go get the everything bagel seasoning at Trader Joe's and then go to Pinsy's.
Yes. Although now every single grocery store has their own version of the everything bagel.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, all of them. So Trader Joe's is probably like, man. Really?
Enough people posted about that on Instagram that someone working the social media at grocery store chains picked up on it.
Exactly. I was actually really excited when they started carrying it everywhere else too, because I was just having to make my own at home because the closest Trader Joe's is like an hour away.
Oh gosh.
So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm making it on my own, just like most other things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Not driving an hour unless it's like, you got something else going
better
on
be
over there.
If I'm driving for an hour.
Yeah. Okay, Katy. Well, this has been fun. I've got a couple of questions at the end here. What's something professionally or personally you'd like to do that you haven't done yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I would love my own show.
Oh, fun. Like a cooking show?
Yeah.
Are you going to do it?
I would love for my husband to be involved with it somehow. I don't even know what that would look like, but he refuses to even be on my Instagram, so it's private. So I doubt I could ever get him on. But I have been in talks, so we'll see what happens.
Oh my gosh, yes, I totally know what you mean in that regard as well. I'm always like, I wish my husband would be more involved in everything I have going on too. It's just more fun together.
Yeah, I'm always begging him, please, can we do this? Can we do that? And he's because he's really funny. He keeps telling me, you need to start a podcast. And I'm like, well, I'll do it if you do it with me. And he's like, nope. So I'm like, well, there's your answer then.
You totally should. You would be good at it.
Thank you. I'll ask you for tips if I ever do.
Yes, for sure. Okay, and what's the most recent book you've read?
Ooh, okay. So I feel like there are two types of readers. And the first type is someone who finishes one book before they start another. And I'm the second type, which is the person who has like 5 million books going on at any given moment. I have a book called The Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs. So it's pretty interesting actually, but it's very long. It talks about just all these different things that humans have kind of stopped paying attention to, like cues that nature gives us, like animals and weather and plants and all this kind of stuff that we've kind of become detached from because we're so we're just like busy all the time. We're running from A to B and we're on our technology and we're not paying attention. And so that's been a really cool book.
That does sound cool.
I'm reading a book called Superhuman by Dave Asprey. I don't know if you know him. He's the bulletproof guy.
Okay.
And it just talks about basically aging, and his big thing is biohacking. So he's kind of trying to figure out how to live forever type of thing. So
wow,
that's pretty interesting. And then I have another book on it's called America's Reluctant Prince, and it's about JFK Jr. because I love the Kennedys. And then the other one here is a book about Daniel Boone.
You have 4 going. I usually have 2 going, never 4.
Yes, 4. I've got 4 going, and they're just like they run the gamut in terms of subjects.
Oh, that's so awesome.
What do you have going?
Hold on just a second. My son's friend is FaceTiming me. I got to tell him. Oh my gosh. My son, he's in kindergarten. It's like he doesn't have any because some kids do like Facebook Messenger with each other. But now that this is a kid from his class last year and they're not in school together anymore. And so he's like always FaceTimes my phone.
Oh, wait, this is a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old?
Yes, a kindergartner.
Oh, that's adorable.
It's his buddy from his pre-K class last year. It's his one very best friend. And so he still comes over sometimes, but he always FaceTimes my phone.
I love that.
What do I have going on? Okay. I am reading Essentialism, and that is a book about basically like what to focus on, what to say no to, basically like niching down your life so that you're not doing all the things and that you can do the things that you do love and that you are good at really well.
I love that.
Yeah, it's good. It's helpful. I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of beating a dead horse a little bit at this point. I'm almost done, but I think it's important to just remind ourselves of that, right? Like not overcommitting and
yes, for women especially, women and mothers.
Yes, 100%. And then the other book I'm reading, it's the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Huh.
And this is by the same author that wrote the book Daisy Jones and the Six. And that book is so good. I don't know if you've read it.
No.
It's Daisy Jones and the Six is a book. It follows like a rock band in the 60s, and it's like years later, and it's basically like interview style, but the band members are all talking as if they're being interviewed by someone. It reads really cool. Like I've never read a book like this, but it's so entertaining, and you finish and you're just like, I want to go listen to their music, but they're not a real band.
Oh, I was going to say, wait, is it fiction or not?
Somebody told me it was loosely based on Fleetwood Mac, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, Katy, here's the last question for the podcast. What is the message that you want to leave with the audience today?
Oh gosh, that's like, what's the meaning of life?
I know, it's a big one.
I think just, I mean, food related, it would be kind of what you said earlier, which is food is nourishment for both your body and your soul. So, if there were one thing that I could do for people, it would be to help them find a great relationship with food, but not in a preachy way. So just kind of like, this is how it is, and this is what we do type of way. And then I think just especially for moms in particular, know that even though it might be tempting to think that, your neighbor or this person that you follow on Instagram or whoever, that they know exactly what they're doing and they're doing everything perfectly and everything right and you're not, that that's not the case. And that none of us really know what we're doing. And this whole mother kind of winging it as we go, and to just know that you're not alone. That's probably my biggest thing with motherhood.
Katy, thank you so much for doing this. This was super fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, Katy, for sharing your story on this podcast, sharing all the great recipes and ideas. You all can find Katy on Instagram. She is Savoring the Flavoring Make sure you check us out on Instagram. We are Why Is Everyone Yelling? We have a Facebook group as well, Why Is Everyone Yelling? And we are part of the Sandy Boy Productions podcast network. If you are into running at all, we have 2 great shows called I'll Have Another with Lindsay Hine and the Up and Running podcast with Lauren and Abby. And then we have another great podcast called the Illuminate podcast, where we highlight people in the world who are doing really amazing, good work. A lot of social entrepreneurs over there on that podcast, as well as people working for nonprofits and just dreaming big about helping others in this world. All right, have a really great rest of your day, and new episodes on this podcast drop every Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Have a great day, friends.